Awesome. Okay, so for the sake of time, we'll get started. Hello, Emil. Great to see you on camera.
Sorry, I'm
No worries, Emil. I know it's dinner time, so appreciate everyone joining during the dinner hour. Well, you're in for a treat today. This is a very impactful workshop that I actually participated in myself as a participant. Shout out to my amazing coach and colleague, Tanya MFK, for facilitating this workshop and generously sharing the slides with me so that I can pay it forward and train youth and adults in the community on how they can build their personal brand story. So as everyone knows, we're being recorded. So if you don't mind, please stay muted. And before we begin our activities today, we always acknowledge the land that we are on. As treaties people on Turtle Island, we are obligated to uphold treaties made from a long time ago. Where I am situated, I would like to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. I also want to thank the First Peoples for their ongoing teaching of how we are to learn on the land and from the land, in partnership with each other, the animals, and the plants. Thank you. Okay, so before we begin, here are some community agreements. Please be kind and respectful of one another. Be open and curious. Practice self-care. We're going to be, hello Stacey, we are going to be going into a deep dive today about our personal stories, and that includes going back into our childhood, thinking about what it is that we really enjoyed, but also what it is that we've always struggled with throughout our lives. So I just wanted everyone to be mindful and tell you to practice self-care. If needed, you need to step away for a bit. Please, you're welcome to do so before coming back to us. And be authentic. This is a space where you can be yourself, of course, respectfully, and being authentic is also going to be really key for us to create that really powerful personal brand story. Also be present and engaged. So this is an hour and a half of power together. And I promise you, you're going to get a lot out of it if you stay engaged and participate actively. So I hope everyone, if you're a pen and paper writer like me, if you don't have it already, please grab some pen and paper, or if you prefer to type things out, please feel free to open a document to type your answers, because these questions that you are going to write the answers to is what's going to formulate that story. All right, and of course, take action. It's not every day that we put an hour and a half aside for ourselves to really dive into our personal brand story. So I encourage you, be active as possible. It's gonna be a big payoff. Okay, so here's a little bit about the amazing organization that I work at as a program coordinator called L.E.A.D org, which is short for the Canadian Multicultural Lead Organization for Mentoring and Training. The L.E.A.D stands for Leadership, Empowerment, Achievement, and Determination. So we are a registered charity. Our aim is to help youth and adults turn challenges into opportunities through empowering them to build key skills that are founded on 4 principles. As I mentioned, leadership, empowerment, achievement, and determination. Since inception in 2007, the L.E.A.D program has provided one-on-one mentorship to over 300 students across the Greater Toronto area, and even more during the pandemic era. Our mission statement is, we give individuals from youth to seniors the support to develop strategies and tools to create their own success stories. And a little bit about me. My name is Valerie, and I am a career development practitioner by profession, also known as Valerie, Career Confidence Coach. I am particularly passionate about helping young people really hone and own their unique skills, strengths, and talents so they can go forward in the direction of their dream careers. And it's through helping young people / youth see their unique brilliance that I help young people transform their lives by skillfully facilitating life-changing mindset shifts with warmth and compassion, turning self-doubt into self-confidence so they can thrive in careers that are aligned with what they love. And I do this through providing one-on-one coaching, group facilitation, and workshops such as the one you're attending this evening or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Okay, so this is our agenda for the evening. And then I'd love to know a little bit more about everybody in the room. All right, so what are we going to cover today? We are going to have a deep dive workshop on telling your personal brand story. So we're going to talk about what is personal branding. We're going to go through a series of questions on the golden thread. There will be 5 questions in that category. Then we'll move on to headliners, where we will cover 7 questions. Then, after we have uncovered our golden threads, which is the common themes that we have seen throughout our life story, along with the headliners, we're going to bring it all together to formulate that powerful personal brand story. I will also be sharing my own story, so you have an example. Then, together as a community, we're going to share insights and takeaways. Then, our closing remarks, we have a survey. Please fill it out. I'll tell you about upcoming events we're hosting at the L.E.A.D org and how you can stay connected with us on social media. All right. So to bottom line, the objectives of today's workshop is going to help you identify the common themes throughout your journey, as mentioned, help you discover your unique gifts and that you have been on your career track all along. Oftentimes we diminish ourselves or we overlook things that you may think it's minimal, but when you actually take the time to examine it and see it for the golden nugget and achievement and accomplishment and gift it is, starts to look a little different. And to help, and our purpose is to help you identify and hone the unique things that make you stand out. And of course, create that powerful personal brand story. All right, so we are a smallish group, which is nice too. You can have a nice intimate gathering. So I'd love to know what brings you here and what do you want to get out of today? So feel free to type it in this chat. Also, where are you tuning in from? I believe we have an international crowd. So along with these 2 questions, please let me know where you are tuning in from. I am tuning in from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I know we have some folks from different places in the room too. Welcome, Heidi. Thank you for joining us from Ottawa. It's a pleasure to see you here. And Heidi, do you want to share what brings you here and what do you want to get out of today? Is this something you're currently doing, trying to build your brand, maybe trying to transition careers? All right, awesome. Thank you, Sean. Sean is tuning in from Toronto. What he wants to get out of today from this workshop is to find a good way to market himself through his personal story. Awesome. You're definitely going to be able to do that in today's workshop. Oh, yay. Okay, so Heidi says, tuning in to explore how to create a personal brand and move forward in her career with more confidence. Yay, you came to the right place, Heidi. And Celeste says, they're tuning from Ohio and they'd like to build their new business brand. Awesome. So this workshop will be helpful whether you're building a new career, transitioning, or if you're an entrepreneur, which I also am. And we're also surrounded by a few entrepreneurs in this very room. So we are in like company. Awesome. Emil is tuning in from Toronto and he's passionate about purpose and meaning and working on that for himself and others. Yay, we got Stacy from Hawaii. And she is here because she is trying to start her passion of health coaching and wanting to learn how to brand herself, how to target an audience and learn to market herself and have more confidence in who I am through this. Yay. I'm so happy you could join us, Stacy, because we're going to do exactly that today. Pavel, would love to hear from you as well if you want to share in the chat. Okay, so Pavel's also in Toronto, and they also want to gain more confidence. Wonderful. Thank you everyone for sharing. All right, so moving forth now, what is personal branding? Why is it important when it comes to developing your career? So we're a small group, so you can actually unmute yourself if you'd like. If you want to share. Sean, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess for me, personal branding is kind of like you're marketing yourself or you're kind of pitching whatever idea you might have to like an audience so that way they get to know what you are about and maybe whatever your business about as a way that it's kind of asking them or you're telling them like how can I engage with you so that way, whatever I'm selling, you can be a supporter or you could be a customer for it.
Okay, so how to market yourself and why is it so important to developing your career or entrepreneurial venture? So you kind of mentioned it, people know who you are.
Yeah, basically, like people know exactly who I am. So, like, for example, I'm a podcaster. So, most of the time, you want to let people know not just about what the podcast is about, but who's the person behind the podcast. Because, the way I want to market myself is that there could be individuals who listen to the podcast, but I also want to be where, people listen to me and they're like, wow, like, I like how Sean sounds. Like, he has a lot of personality and charisma to himself, and maybe I want to like use him for an event. Maybe he can be like an MC for this event as well. So that's kind of like the way I've approached like personal branding when it comes to my platform, not just building an audience with my with my podcast. Actually saw in the chat, it meant I think it was Celeste talking about makes you relatable. Yeah, that's definitely one aspect, but I also want to be where people see me in a bigger lens because of the platform I have, which is my podcast.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, Sean. Yes, sharing your story especially makes you more relatable. And shout out to Sean for his awesome podcast. It's called The Safe Room. It's available on many platforms, including Spotify. And he shares many amazing stories on there. And just side note, having a podcast is definitely an amazing way to brand yourself and have that marketing tool already there. We have Kamani. Kamani, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So just earlier, we did brief introductions, so we'd love to hear a little bit about you. Kamani is a good friend and classmate and colleague of mine, as well as spoken word artist. Kind of did a pre-introduction for him, but love to know from you, Kamani, what brings you here to this workshop about personal branding and building that strong personal brand story? And what do you want to get out of today? Kamani, you're muted.
Unmute. Sorry about that. You can hear me now, right? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thanks for having me. First of all, what brings me here? Obviously, is just to sort of learn more about what the topic is, which is branding. Time and time, you sort of want to put yourself out there based on your interests and your passions per se, but just knowing how to go about it, because I think social media time frame that we're in, it's kind of seen as this it's easy to put yourself out there to be noticed, but it does take a particular technique, and it does take people that are there to support you and knowing how to connect and knowing how to brand yourself. So I'm pretty much here to learn, get more information on how to do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Kamani, for sharing that. Really appreciate you being here and supporting our events at the L.E.A.D org. And so we kind of covered it about personal branding is really important for us to market ourselves, tell the world who we are, and it's very important for us when we're developing our careers or entrepreneurially. All right, so we are going to move forward and dive into those questions. So the first half is going to be about the golden threads. Now, with the golden threads, we're going to go through a series of 5 different questions. So get those pens and paper ready to write them down. So when you go through the golden threads, you're going to start to see the different themes in your life, and you'll start to be able to uncover that story. And then our headliners, that's 7 questions, and we will really pull on those highlights and accomplishments from your career, from your life. So we'll do that right after we dive into the golden threads. Alrighty, and I'm going to be sharing mine as well. So first question, I want you to go back in time to when you were a little kid. What did you love doing when you were 6 years old? It doesn't have to be when you're 6. It could have been younger. It could have been when you're 4, 5, maybe 7, 8. But when we look back into our childhoods, they often hold clues to what we enjoy doing. So for me, when I was 6, and through much of my childhood, I really enjoyed reading. My dad was a big influencer in that. He's also a big reader as well as writer. And so thank goodness that my dad fostered the love of learning in me. So I had many books growing up, and we were always going to the libraries. So the books I really loved reading were science books. I really was interested in learning about how the world worked. So I loved learning about, science, biology. I loved learning about different cultures and history around the world. I loved stories like the Chronicles of Narnia. I was always watching educational videos like Discovery Kids or National Geographic Kids. I remember we went on a family trip to Mexico, and I brought a small science textbook with me when I was 6 years old. I was that kid, my nose in the science textbook when I was 6 years old. So for me, that holds a lot of clues because as I grew older, I continue to love learning, and it's related to what I'm doing now, where I'm teaching, I'm guiding, I'm educating others, and I'm sharing my love of learning with others. I actually did go abroad and become a teacher. And when I look back, I can see that there's that connection. All right, so please write down what you did when you're little. We will have the opportunity to share as well once we get through the golden thread slides. Maybe for you, it was cooking, or maybe you're also, even if you're 6, maybe you're helping your friends on the playground solve issues. Maybe you pretended to be a teacher, a TV show host. Go back in time and think about those things. All right. Are we ready for our next question? What did you study at university or otherwise? So it could be university, college, or if you are still younger, if you're in school, high school, like what did you love learning back then? What was your favorite subject? For me, I studied English literature. I mean, no surprise, I was a kid that was always reading stories and novels and fairy tales. So I ended up studying English literature as well as history and Canadian studies. And I studied women and gender studies as well in university. Because in addition to learning about history, it was also really into world issues and what was going on in the world, and different inequalities is really, even when I read that stuff when I was young, I would always be like really shocked, like, wow, I can't believe that happened. So write down what you studied. Okay, so this next question is a bit of a deep dive. What have you struggled with your whole life? Was it fitting in? Was it being accepted, not feeling confident, being afraid to speak up for yourself? For me, it was, I really struggled with being able to, speak up for myself, being confident. I could trace that back to my upbringing. I'm a first generation Canadian born. My parents came from Vietnam. They survived the war, and culturally growing up, it was challenging in a sense, especially if you were a girl, kind of authoritarian, don't talk back. There's certain expectations of how to be. There's ideas of success that come with that as well. In order to be successful, you got to work hard. You can only be one of three things in your career: the doctor, the lawyer, engineer, or disgrace to the family. So what I struggled with was my confidence and also what I was gonna do when I quote unquote grew up. And no surprise, now I'm helping people with that. So what did you always struggle with? Take a moment to reflect. Okay. So how is your answer to one or all of the questions directly related to your gift and expertise to this day? So now that you've written your answers down, can you start to see the golden threads and themes throughout? So you've heard my shares. There was a love of learning. I also loved personal development when I was young too. I was also reading books about handwriting analysis. What does your handwriting say about you? When I was in middle school, I was really into magazines, preteen and teen magazines. And there's always personality quizzes. I love taking those. And voila, what am I doing now? I'm a career development practitioner and I'm helping people with personal assessments. So at the time, I didn't realize it would add up to this whole career, but looking back, I can see the threads. So I'll give everyone another minute or two to reflect, and then we're going to have the opportunity to share. Okay, just want to check in. Who needs a few more minutes? Can you give me a thumbs up or emoji thumbs up if you need a couple more minutes? Okay, all right, I'll give you a few more minutes. Okay, how's everyone doing? Still see some people writing. Who needs one more minute? Thumbs up if you need one more minute. Okay, I don't see any thumbs up. So I'm going to move forward to the next slide. So what did you find? Now this is an opportunity for you to share your findings. So if anyone wants to be courageous and unmute themselves, I would love to hear it. You're also welcome to type in the chat, but we're a small enough group. So if you'd like, you're welcome to unmute yourself and share.
Um, I guess I was actually waiting for someone to go. Not to say I was afraid. I think I just wanted to like leave the floor open, but I guess I'll go. So I think the first question was like, what did I do when I was like 6 years old? But I probably don't even remember, so I just kind of stuck into the realm like, what did I do when I was young? Um, I love to play sports. I loved to play sports at the time. It didn't matter if it was like soccer, basketball, baseball, floor hockey. That was something I wanted to do. Even watch and talk about sports. Like my friends and I, we used to just legit every time we came to school, that's all we talked about. Like we weren't thinking about class and everything. Oh, like when's the next test? Like no, we're talking about the games that happened the previous day, the previous night. You know, it was like super fun. And I told myself at the time, like, yo, if it comes to be like maybe I want to be like a professional athlete in the MLB, you know, playing for the Blue Jays, something like that. That was just me as a kid, just kind of dreaming of like something huge like that. So yeah, I believe the second one was what did I study? So I went to York University. I studied business and society. So it's sort of like an interdisciplinary study that involves in different stuff. So like economics, humanity, sociology, business, of course, philosophy. I actually just graduated from York just this past June. So yeah, that was something that I found really interesting. I really like some of the material from there. I will say some of the papers were like super heavy. I'm talking like 2,000 words, and I just wasn't for it. But other than that, it was still really entertaining. Um, and I think you also one of the other question was like something about what was one thing that you kind of struggled with, and I think for me, I struggled with like failing, and like what I mean by that is that I focused so much on being a perfectionist, making sure that everything was right all the time, that when I hit a roadblock, I would like flip out, like I would like lose my mind, which is kind of funny because I was someone like at a young age that had like anger management problems. So it's like, again, maybe it kind of stems with the fact that everything I need to do is perfect. So that was one thing that I was really struggling to like, you know, come to like realize. And I guess how it all relates to everything now is that being a podcaster, I realized that you really can't strive for perfection. If you expect a recording to go perfect, then it's good luck with that. So it actually pushed me to try different things in which where I failed, but I was able to, you know, grow from those experiences. And I wasn't so nervous or I wasn't so hot headed when I failed. And concerning the sports, again, I love talked about it so much. I kind of felt like I was a commentator, like at one of those games. And, you know, I kind of see like, okay, podcaster, commentator, kind of fits the bill, and which is funny too, like because I do outside of like my main podcast, The Safe Room, I do have a sports podcast as well with my best friend. And again, we used to talk about sports all the time, so it's kind of like funny how something we were talking about just for fun as kids, now we have our own podcast. Now it's kind of, you know, foreshadowing a bit. And in terms of like my degree, my business degree, it kind of relates because, you know, I kind of treat my podcast as a business. It is a business, so I make sure that everything I do about it, I handle it the right way. I market it a certain way, and I just do it with everything I can do. But yeah, that's what I basically got through those questions.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing, Sean. I love how you saw that golden thread and you weaved it so well throughout the different experiences from, you know, when you were young in elementary school, love playing sports, love talking about it, and now you're a podcaster and you have your very own podcast specifically about sports with that same best friend from childhood. And I love that you fuse that business with a podcast because you very much like I have seen your website, I have heard your work. You have like I don't know over 100 episodes of, and that's amazing. And that started over the pandemic. So you had that eye during the pandemic to create a podcast, and you treated it like a business. And I think that's why it became so successful because you know there's such a thing as pod fade. People started. I'm sure many got started during the pandemic, like, yeah, this is like such a cool project, and then slowly dwindles. However, yours has just been growing and growing. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Sean. And now I'd love to hear from another participant in the audience. How about Stacy? Oh, Emil. Okay, we'll go with Emil. Over to you, Emil.
No, go ahead with Stacy. I was just going to
Okay.
things going. Yeah. Go ahead.
No problem. Thank you, Emil. By the way, Emil is a former high school guidance counselor, and we know each other from the Association of Career Educators. So we're both part of the career development space. Okay, over to Stacy.
Hi. Sorry, I got very sleepy. Trying to stay awake. I've been up since 1 a.m. So I'm a little tired. But anyway, hi. So I was trying to think about what I loved when I was 6 years old. I loved reading, actually. I was always known to have my nose in a book. I don't know what books I was reading back then. Funny enough, I actually have 2 books with me all the time. I have a book I read at home, and then I have a book I read at work. So I love books. And then I think one of the biggest things about growing up for me was I had this thing of making friends. I just go up to random people and just try to talk to them, make friends with them. My mom told me that there's a story of she took me to work with her like all the time. And I would walk up and sit down next to a person. I'll be like, "Hi, I'm Stacy. Want to be my friend?" And there's actually a woman who I was very persistent on, and she kept saying like, "Go away, go away." And I was like, "No, let's be friends." And anyway, it didn't work out. But yeah, so I like doing that. And then I don't really know what else, but when I went to university, I actually went into elementary education. I didn't really know what venture I wanted to go into at the time. I think when I had gone into university, I had thought originally like I wanted to be a wedding planner, and I didn't know what's I think major to go into for that, and I got really lost, and then thought about being a respiratory therapist. Because my grandfather actually passed away from having really bad asthma and had a respiratory therapist. So I had heard of that and thought maybe I'd go into that. And then I was working at a children's center at the time. 2 to 4-year-old kids, loved them. And I thought, why don't I be a teacher? So I got into that. If I were to do it again, though, I'd probably be a counselor for kids. I found after when I was doing part-time teaching in Korea and everything that I actually have a really good time talking to the kids when they're having really hard times, or I notice like behavior issues or something was going on, and I'd like pull them aside and kind of like dive deeper with them about that, and kind of make them feel more comfortable, and then they'll be able to kind of go back into their studies or tell me what's going on. And so that and then I ended up falling in love with like nutrition and health, and kind of got my certification in health coaching. So that's what I'm trying to do now. But so yeah, I think I see the ties, like trying to be a health coach, being a teacher, trying to guide people. I've always known since I was young, not my passion, but my purpose in life is to help guide people. I just didn't know how. I just knew that I was meant to be here to help guide. And I feel like it's probably with health coaching. And so it definitely does tie together a lot to that. So, and then making new friends, like that's how it is. I'm always out there to like be out there and talk to people. And even now, like I'm always talking to others, and they're always like, "Oh my gosh, I don't like you're so friendly," or like you're so easy to talk to, or something. And it just makes me feel really good to know that just like being who I am kind of like helps them in a little way. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing, Stacy. So Stacy and I are actually very, very good friends. We actually met when we both taught English abroad in South Korea. So that's how we connected, and we both have similarities, love teaching, love books, educating, and I love, Stacy, that you are very naturally, just because I know you're a very introspective person. So you're able to reflect on everything that you just reflected on. Summarized it very well. Back to us. Awesome. And yes, Stacy is very friendly as well, and very good at coaching and counseling, and very health oriented. So I can see her being that amazing health coach. Thanks for sharing, Stacy. Okay, now it's over to you, Emil.
Hi. So I think, so one of the questions was, what did you study? So I studied all kinds of stuff: philosophy, theology, psychology, teaching, uh, and basically I loved learning. But the other part of it was, I think from my high school years, I love leadership. And so I, I'm now at a stage where I'm have done all those things. I have been a teacher, counselor, coordinator. I still run a peer support group, and I was, after I retired from full-time teaching, I led an organization called the Association of Career Educators, where I met Valerie. Uh, I'm looking for an opportunity to do less of that, even though that's my passion. And I'm trying to transition into playing more golf. I think playing was also one of my early childhood memories, is always wanting to play. I remember telling my babysitter, I don't want to grow up because then you have to work. I just want to play. So I'm back to that. I want to play. But I'd like to also teach golfing. And so I'm working on that.
Thank you, Emil, for sharing. And I love how you tied, playing as a kid, and you're now in your retirement. Now you're back to the stuff that you enjoyed as a child, which is playing golf, and you're combining it with your love of teaching, which is now teaching others to also love playing golf. Wonderful. So we have room for one more share, and then we're going to move into the headlines, because after that, we are going to create that story. One more share. Heidi, would you like to share?
Yes, I'll share. Thank you. So for question number 1, what did you love doing when you were a kid? For me, I always loved just being in the car, traveling around. I always loved being on the road somewhere, loved being outside. I also loved reading, and specifically, I loved the books that was sort of like a choose your own adventure style. I always found those really fun, really fulfilling. And also really enjoyed doing arts and crafts, anything that was, of an artistic nature. I really enjoyed that as well. What I studied was actually justice studies and law clerk. So I have a legal background, which was very heavily influenced by my parents, who had the the mindset that work, life is work, no time for play or anything like that. So I did dive full swing into that career. And I think one of the struggles that I had because of that is a lot of the time, being vulnerable and fitting in with people, because I just always had this mentality of working on certain goals with kind of a tunnel vision. So it sort of restricted my views on being a bit more open, connecting more with people, which is something that I've been working on over the years. And then with all of that comes, just a lot of self-doubt as well, with, wondering, have I made the right career choices? Where I'm at right now, I'm actually working, taking complaints from the public against police officers, which is a very, there's a lot of trauma-informed training involved behind that. So I feel like, I was raised to just, work and be always very busy and take life very seriously. I ended up in this very serious, very heavy line of work, which I do enjoy, but it definitely takes away from that that childhood play. And I think what I'm really looking, and have realized even just in this session here with you guys tonight, is that, I think I'd like to sort of make my life more one of those choose your own adventure books at this point and have some more options as to which direction it can kind of go moving forward.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing, Heidi. Seems like such a contrast, your childhood where that's lots of adventure, being on the road, loving the choose your own adventure books. I love that as well. And then the contrast is that strict upbringing, life is work, life's got to be hard, you have to work all the time. And now you're kind of swinging back into that inner child, which is that adventurous, creative type. So thank you so much for sharing, Heidi. Awesome. So for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the headlines, but there's going to be more chances for sharing. Okay, so the headlines, your headlines. So, oftentimes we are encouraged not to really brag or share our accomplishments because we've been conditioned to believe it's braggadocious, it's boastful, but here is a chance for you to do exactly that. And I want you to examine and look at all your accomplishments, even if they seem mediocre, because oftentimes we do diminish ourselves because of those beliefs. So you're being boastful. I know the cultural background I come from, there is celebration, but oftentimes it's not celebrating the little things. It's like you do what you do and then you just kind of move on. But let's take the opportunity to go back and have a look at those accomplishments. So we're going to go through a series of 7 questions. So number 1, look through your CV or resume. If you have it somewhere in your computer, sure, you can pull it up. But if you already know it, you can just go off of that. So list all the jobs that you've had, including volunteering and extracurricular activities. So for me, one of the most prominent jobs that I had when I was younger was working in the sales field. I was an eyewear consultant at a major eyewear company for 4 years, and I learned a lot from that job as a consultant about sales, talking to people, and I was top 25 in North America. And I realized through that job how much I enjoyed building relations with people, connecting with them, finding out what their needs are, providing them with solutions, and volunteering. Ever since I was in high school, I was involved in student council, I was in leadership. I helped coordinate and build we had 40-hour famine events like every year. We had a lot of stuff in the community, like we took part in the Santa Claus parade. When I was in university, I also volunteered and was later hired as a food justice coordinator. So again, there was a lot of themes of community engagement. So ever since high school, often to university as well, I really enjoyed doing stuff in the community. I also taught English, as I mentioned, and what I'm doing now is I am doing career education, career coaching, and counseling. So take a moment to go through that resume. List all the jobs that you've had. You might start to see a common theme throughout it. Okay, so we're going to move forward with the next question, but if you're still writing, continue to list those experiences. All right, so look at your experience in education. So what are you experienced in? So for example, I mentioned community involvement. in addition to teaching when I was in Korea, I was also a volunteer coordinator. Started off as a volunteer at the Busan Children's Home, and that evolved into a position of leadership where I started to coordinate the volunteers. I brought together foreigners as well as locals to come together once a month to spend time with children who lived in the children's home in the city of Busan, where I lived and taught English, along with Stacy. She was there too. So I am experienced in coordination, volunteer coordination. My education is in a social justice oriented social studies topic. So it was always doing something in community, especially for groups of people who may be facing barriers. Worked at the Center for Women and Trans People on campus, and worked at a couple of nonprofits serving youth facing high barriers as well. Okay, next question. Look at what you've achieved in your career. So that could be including in your education and volunteer pursuits as well. So what have you achieved? So Sean mentioned he just graduated from university. So that's a huge achievement. Got his bachelor's degree. Were you maybe, did you get any awards? Any awards or recognition? Did you maybe even change careers, transition? That's also an accomplishment. Did you go back to school after many years? I did. I went back to school when I found this field of career development, which I never knew existed until I needed guidance myself, and I met an amazing career development practitioner, and helped me so much. I decided to go back to school and earn my certification from George Brown as a career development practitioner. So write down your achievements, and this is an opportunity to toot that horn. So don't hold back. Okay, so as you're writing that, I'm going to move forward with the next question, which is related. Make a list of acknowledgements you've received. So it could be awards or even what people say that you're good at. So like people said to Stacy, wow, you're so friendly. You're a really good listener. You're an amazing coach. I have told Stacy that many times. She is. She has coached me many a time. You're good at speaking. Okay, moving on to the next question. Make a list of all the things you've achieved in life. So that could be even personal stuff. So it could be graduating, starting over, making a difference in your community. Maybe it's something like leaving a toxic relationship or environment. That is an accomplishment. Okay, so moving on to the next question, make a list of personal and professional setbacks you've recovered from. So with every strong personal brand story, every hero's journey, which is what you're writing, because each of you are living your own personal legend, there is always some kind of setback along the way. So was it like recovering from that really staunch perfectionistic mindset? Was there a failure that happened that taught you a big lesson in life? Was it getting into a serious accident? True story, it happened to me, to finally make me realize not to grind so hard. Was it a long period of unemployment that you recovered from? Also, true story on my end. There was a period of time I was super lost, super burned out. Didn't even work for over a year because I was so exhausted. But it was also exactly what I needed to launch me forward. So write down those struggles, setbacks you've had personally, professionally, that you've recovered from. Okay, so next question. What are some things you are proud of? So make that list, toot that horn. What are some things you are truly proud of? It could be related to recovering from that setback. Like finding your way after being lost for a long period of time. Starting that podcast. Deciding to follow your gut and inner voice that's telling you to make that career switch, to start that business. What are you proud of? Okay, so I just want to check in. Seems like people are still writing. Who needs another minute or two? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, I don't see any thumbs, so let's move forward now. And we'd love to hear from the folks who haven't shared yet. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a moment. Kimani, if you're there, would you like to share some of your headlines?
Yeah, sure, no problem. It's pretty dark. I don't know if you could see me.
No, okay, sort of.
Yeah, I'll get the ones.
Okay, great.
There we go. Okay, so headlines. Okay.
So CV, resume.
Oh,
what are
yes.
some of the jobs you've had?
Uh, well, to be honest, I did a lot of sales coming up, a lot of sales. I did security, I did youth work, did a lot of community work per se. And counseling too as well, which is what I'm doing right now, counseling. Experience in, well, I would say community work. I did a lot of community work, a lot of youth work, which kind of brings us back to, you know, what I'm doing right now, which is counseling, but for youth. So it ties that in all together. The next one was, what was it? Look.
What you've achieved in your career. Yes, and you also forgot to mention something very amazing artistic that you do, also in the community, because we have collaborated before.
Yeah, I have that for, let's see, what I'm proud of. So it's, you know, it's there.
We'll wait.
So where are we again? Sorry.
Achievements. What have you achieved in your career?
Okay. Well, like I'm pretty modest, to be honest. Like I'll bore you to death. I won't, I think my achievements is just within the people that I help, to be honest. That's kind of what I'm looking for. It's nothing really for me per se, but yeah, it's just to help people and to see that what I'm doing helps them. That's a huge thing. I'll just say, as working at the shelter, to be honest, and just to seeing the difference that what I was doing and how I kind of helped them to become what they are today. That's pretty much the only achievement I'm sort of like proud of. Everything else is just kind of for me per se. So when you work in a shelter, you get to see that the world is a huge place, and you get different walks of life coming in there, and just to have an understanding that we all go through something, right? And there's a common thread with everything that we do and who we are. So it's just I learned to see people in a different light. So that's pretty much a big achievement for me. Graduating too, we did the same program. Graduating, that was one of my achievements. And performing, like just having the opportunity to perform, the poetry that I do, that's a big achievement for me. Personal, I would say just networking and seeing the benefit of that and understand it, because in school you taught to network, but I wasn't really too interested in networking. But after graduated and working at a few places and meeting up with you, the networking genius, just having you rubbing off of me and just seeing how important it is to network, that's a huge thing. And like I said, what I'm proud of is the workshop we collaborated with, did a workshop, poetry workshop, and even the podcast too was another thing I'm proud of. And the book that I'm writing is another thing that I'm also proud of, because I think it's a really important thing, and it asks the right questions and allows for the right conversations to be had. So yeah, that's pretty much me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kamani, for sharing. And yes, I agree with Sean, who in the chat put boost yourself up, Kamani. I agree. Kamani is one of the most amazing people I know, and I'm always telling him to boost himself up because he truly does have amazing accomplishments, and he's an amazing spoken word artist as well as soon to be published author. And I read some of that manuscript, and it is very touching. So yeah, boost yourself up. Awesome. And thank you so much you're welcome. And thank you so much for typing in the chat. Experiences in management, logistics, sales, travel, coordination, as well as resume of management, sales, entrepreneurship. Oh, that's amazing. That's an amazing achievement. Started a business during the pandemic. Gained a deal with the airport in your area last September. Congratulations. Many people started their businesses during the pandemic, including myself, and I believe Sean as well. Heidi, I know you had those soaps too. So yay for us for, being creative and starting our businesses. And all the businesses that we started, Heidi, you got creative with the arts and crafts, with the soaps. Sean, yeah, you started the podcast. Me, started my own coaching business. Celeste, what business did you start? Oh, Celeste has also been featured in local news coverage, magazine articles. That's a big deal. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to move forward for the sake of time so that we can get to writing our actual story. We're going to piece everything together. We're going to bring it all together and create a story. All right, so I am going to share mine, which I have pre-created because I facilitated this workshop previously with my group of youth. And I will share as an example. So you can see what a personal brand story sounds like. And When we're writing the story, it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is a start. I will say mine is very long, so it doesn't have to be this long, but what I have written can be transformed into a bio, a LinkedIn about section, and even honed to create a strong personal brand statement. I want to really make it short. All right, so this is my personal brand story. I'm a lifelong learner and natural born leader. I started learning and reading about how the world worked at age 4, thanks to my dad fostering the love of learning within me from an early age. I had my first business at age 9 with a home library. Oh, by the way, since I loved books so much and I had so many of them, I decided to create a home library system at home. And I had the whole like sign-out system, rewards and everything. And I'd also get upset if my patrons did not return their books on time. And I also had my another business at age 16 with an award-winning smoothie business in my high school cafeteria. I'm also really big into health like Stacey. I've been involved with the community since I was 14 and passionate about making the world a better place as a member of the student council and leadership. I'm a deep thinker and feeler. I process life through writing and have been keeping a journal since I was 7. I am passionate about personal development, health and wellness, learning, and social justice. I had a successful career in sales at 23 and volunteer coordination and teaching English abroad at 26. I've led volunteers, children, and adults to make the world a better place through the love of community engagement and learning, as well as youths. I've coached hundreds of youths on how to build their careers with confidence. At 28, I found myself lost and unemployed for over a year, recovering my mental well-being and self-confidence after 2 years of working in a really tough environment. I'm a first-generation Canadian-born daughter of refugee parents who treacherously escaped the Vietnam War as boat people. I grew up with a parent who struggled severely with their health and finances as a result of the deep trauma sustained by war. I've struggled with my sense of self-worth, self-confidence, and burnout. I've doubted myself and questioned what was wrong with me as I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with my life or career in my 20s. I was a workaholic, grinding hard and trying to do all of the things and nearly worked myself into the ground. I'm a recovering perfectionist that equated my value and worth with my productivity. I lacked career and vocational guidance as a young adult and strived to please and live up to my family's expectations. I'm a recovering people pleaser who put others' needs before my own. I found it challenging to rest because I was afraid it would cause me to slow down or fail. I struggled with my identity, straddling 2 different cultures, difficult emotions, as well as mental health challenges. I've compared myself to others and believed success was for them and not for me, and that success was hard-won. I've always been resourceful and oriented towards connecting with people, as well as self-growth and personal development. With little guidance, With little guidance, aside from high expectations and mixed messages from school, I became resourceful and nurtured that growth and learning in myself. I became the person I needed when I was younger and carved my own path. Now I fully support myself by helping others transform. I'm thankful for what I earn, but I don't measure my success in dollars. I count it in the lives I've been able to touch. The freedom and ability to do what I love, teaching the topics that are close to my heart. I'm an expert at helping youth and young adults build their careers with confidence by honing and owning their unique strengths, skills, and talents. I specialize in helping amazing youth see how brilliant they are. My clients have included creatives, marketers, pre-med students, entrepreneurs, activists, engineers, community organizers, and data science specialists. I facilitated over 100 events and taught hundreds of classes. I've worked with youth facing high barriers and homelessness, internationally trained newcomers, and recently graduated first-generation Canadians who are struggling to find their way. I've helped young professionals go from unemployed and lost for over a year to getting a high-paying job in their career field within the span of 2 weeks. I'm the founder of Valerie Career Confidence Coach and program coordinator at the L.E.A.D org, where I help youth overcome self-doubt and develop the confidence to go for their dream careers through one-on-one group coaching, as well as workshops and career development programs, so they can go on to careers that they love and can thrive in. Ambitious, talented, driven young professionals trust me deeply because I can see what they cannot, and I can help them strategize their next move within an accelerated period of time. I've created career development programs and collaborated with TED Talk speakers, incredible coaches, and mentors to bring youth who may not otherwise have access to high quality mentorship and life-changing career guidance. I'm a sought-after speaker who has been featured on podcasts, at conferences, and have presented workshops for major nonprofits. And what I am truly most proud of is my ability to impact the lives of youth so they can impact and positively transform the world, making it a better place. If you have a vision for your career and life you want to fulfill that may currently feel out of reach and you're ready to level up, let's connect and transform your career. The end. So that was a very long spiel. Yours doesn't have to be that long. And if you see at the end, I put in a little pitch because part of personal branding, like we were talking about in the beginning, is how to market ourselves. So I put in a little call to action at the end that invites people to connect with me. Like I mentioned, this could go on to my bio, my website's about section, or it could go onto my LinkedIn or somewhere. So it's up to you if you want to throw in that call to action, but I just wanted to mention that I put it in there for the purpose of marketing. All right, so I know that was very long, but now we have some time on the clock to write your stories. Doesn't have to be as long though, and doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just get started. Oh, thank you, Emil. You're very welcome. I'm glad it was inspiring. And I gotta say, when I was writing this, it was really powerful. Because like many of you, sometimes we don't boost ourselves up. We dismiss or diminish our accomplishments. So this is your time to shine. Okay, so to avoid going over time, I'm going to put maybe about 5 minutes on the clock. So it's going to be a little bit of speed writing. And then when we come back, we may have time for at least one person to share. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, while we're writing, if you do feel more inclined or comfortable, you're also welcome to turn your cameras off while you write. And I'll do that as well for comfort purposes. So see you in about 5. Okay, just checking in with everybody. Who needs another minute or two? Thumbs up if you need another minute or two. Okay, so we have another minute or two on the clock. Just a heads up about time, it's now 7:50. There's a chance we may be going over time by at least 5 to 10 minutes. If you don't mind, because I would love to hear everyone's stories. I think there would be such value in sharing. So we might be going a little bit of time with this workshop. However, if you do need to hop off, completely understand. Okay, 2 more minutes. Okay, another minute. All right, so we'd love to hear you bring it together. So whenever you're ready, feel free to join us back on camera. And we'd love to hear at least 1 to 2 people share their powerful personal brand story. Pavel, Celeste. Pavel, we haven't heard from you yet. In case you'd like to share. If you prefer to type in the chat, that's fine too. We may be able to read your story in increments in the chat. But is there anyone here who would like to share their story? Heidi, Sean, Stacy.
I'm gonna be honest, like I was still typing because there's just so much.
There is a lot. Yes, that's fine. Do you want to share what you've come up with so far? Yeah, science workshop. It needs at least 3 hours, but
yeah, I'll definitely share what I came up with, and I'll probably be like winging it while I go through. So
this is like off with perfectionism. It's just
yeah. So I'm a podcaster who uses his voice to allow others to share their stories and perspectives. At a young age, I was very energetic and odd, to the point where people saw me in a different light. I had anger management issues and was being moved from school multiple times before settling down in grade 3. I didn't really fit in with many crowds because the way I perceived myself was never the normal way. I've achieved a lot during my academic career, including awards in mathematics and drama. The sentence was clear. I was nerdy and was ready to be smart at everything, but lacked the personality to connect with all of my peers. I continued to venture into areas of extracurricular activities once I hit middle school, only to find nothing for me. it became a point where academics was my identity. So I strived to be the absolute best and outlast the competition. So that's what I had. But I was gonna add on to the fact that at the time, being in middle school, again, I was just trying to stick to academics because those were the only ways I was viewed upon. Because I tried to venture off and be more, fun and engageful, but I think because of the academics being the only thing I could focus on, I think that's when the perfection problem started to come into play. That's where I needed to make sure I got like 100% on everything. I needed to make sure I was better than my classmates. And it was sort of a poison to me, to where I didn't really know myself like that. And people had huge expectations, whether it was my friends, my family, everyone saw that if Sean didn't do, the number one thing, if he wasn't top of his class, then what is he? So everything just kind of translated back into high school when I moved forward. And that's where the opportunities of like being in different clubs, which I was in a lot. I did like in 1 year, I think like 10 clubs in 1 year, like no joke. And like from that, I was still finding that issue of perfection and I didn't know why. And I think it was not based on the fact that I wanted everything to be perfect. I just wanted to be included. I wanted to be someone that people can hear me out. Because again, I was so shy, which is hard to believe, especially to everything now. You would assume that Sean is the farthest from shy. He's probably the most like extroverted person you can meet. But yeah, I was so afraid to like express myself because the huge overview was that was I gonna fit in? Was it gonna be something that people agreed with, whether it was like I like this or like they agree on this statement? So I was so afraid, and from that, I tried to do more community work, and it kind of came to the point where I was bouncing from area to area to area, and sure, I was kind of like getting that experience, but I still dealt with that problem of do I feel included? And it was until university came, and I went to York, took business. And I think when the pandemic kicked in, that was a lot of people's self-realization moment. And from that, I actually realized from that time that I've been doing all this running around, trying to join clubs, be part of the community, and that's great. But why do I still feel like I'm hurting inside, or like there's some part of me, like as a young child, that's still trying to be included, still trying to be heard? And I think I realized from that moment is that the way life is panned out, not everyone is going to hear you, and that's okay. It's only if you're able to accept that and move forward in your own light. So once I was able to do that, then everything just kind of felt so clear, which kind of led to my podcast. Because when I did my podcast, I wasn't worried about, oh man, if I'm gonna say something, or people are gonna judge me, or people are gonna say like, wow, Sean, like that was a real stupid take, man. Like I'm not sure if you should continue this. I wasn't thinking about stuff like that. So from there, it kind of just panned out into everything, to all the accomplishments I have. I have a bunch, so that's why I'm not going through it, because that will take like more time. But yeah, I think the moral of my entire story was built on like perfection, but also in the sense of being included, which is why that it's kind of poetic justice in a way that me as a podcaster for like into my third year, I want to use my voice to give others the chance to kind of share their story and feel included as well. Why I kind of named it the safe room, because I want to be that safe space, the safe space that I wish I had when I was young, but now I have it now. I've come to that realization, I just want to like give it to everyone else.
Wow, 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 wow. What a story, Sean. Thank you so much for sharing. I think you basically came up with your personal brand story right there, being that person, when you're younger, really struggling with your identity, fitting in, really kind of pinning your identity on what other people thought of you as academic, right? And then, embracing yourself, embracing that, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. And that's when the clarity came through. And now you're doing that for others. Just like similar to me, I was that person. I didn't have that guidance. I was lost and confused. I didn't feel confident. And now I'm helping other people with it. So similar, Sean, is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Sean. That was excellent. Oh, I'm really happy with the way things turned out. So it is 8 o'clock now. So as I mentioned, if you do need to hop off, completely understand. But if you do want to stick around for a little longer, I would love to have another person, at least one more person, share theirs, and would love to hear your insights too. You're very welcome. Okay, Stacy, you had your hand raised. Over to you, Stacy.
Hi. Okay. I'm gonna be very honest. I fell asleep for like a little bit and woke up in the middle of you reading your thing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" But I got the gist of it, and really glad that Sean also went with his thing. It was really good. I had a hard time at first, and in the end, I ended up going to my WordPress blog, and I had just recently re-edited my about in my WordPress blog to figure out how I wanted to reach an audience. And then with the help of listening to Sean and Valerie's thing, I started writing something. So anyway, this is kind of what I got. It's not complete, but basically my gist is, okay, I am a health coach who always had the gift of making friends. I went into the path of education always knowing, I said always again, always knowing my purpose in life is to help and guide others. It wasn't until I went through my own health and wellness journey, losing 50 pounds and finding a love for health through mind, body, and soul, that I realized my true passion is to guide others in their own goals, helping them to love who they are while also elevating them to the best version of themselves. Believing that the only way to get through life is to grow through life. Yeah, that's kind of what I got so far. But one of the things I really like about my about that I wrote was I wrote, through my own overall health journey and lifestyle, I found a passion to elevate you to loving the best version of yourself, working to help you live the ultimate best through health, wellness, and love for oneself, taking opportunities wherever present and molding them into unbelievable life experiences, believing that the only way to get through life is to grow through life. And then I wrote, if you're interested in working with me. So that's what my about was, but I kind of took bits of that and wrote what I wrote now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stacey. I love that line at the end. The best way to go through it is to grow through life.
Yep,
and
my tattoo.
Oh, yes, you do have it tattooed on you. One of your many pets. Okay. So, and I gotta say, like, Stacey and Sean, you both kept it real. You talked about your own real life experience, struggling to fit in, struggling with your health, struggling with your weights, and that is what is really going to have people connect with you. Earlier, one of us mentioned, it makes you relatable, right? People want to work with people who are relatable, not someone who's like, oh, perfect, I never struggled before. And putting it in a storytelling format is really powerful because, like they say, facts tell, but stories sell. So that's exactly what we're doing when we're creating this personal brand story, is creating a story that really sells and keeps it real. Because, like, I don't really care about if you graduated from Harvard with like this master's degree, right? I really want to know, what have you been through, where you've struggled? How do I know that's going to help me? Great. Okay, so we are going over time. However, is there anyone else who wants to share? I'm also a big story nerd, so that's why I'm kind of asking, because I would love to hear. Celeste, Pavel, Kamani. All right. Emil, did you want to share quickly? And then we're going to go to insights.
Well, this has been great. I'm 75 years old, so there's a lot to go over. But I grew up on a farm in Manitoba, and from an early age, I dreamed of excelling. Although I stood to inherit a successful farming enterprise, I was inspired to higher goals. A maxim at school was ad maiorem natus sum. I'm born for greater things. So I chose to enter the religious life and to become a priest. I succeeded in graduating from a university prep program in secondary school, went on to university in Connecticut, and then 5 more years at the St. Paul University, University of Ottawa. I was ordained, I became an assistant pastor. I went to teach at a secondary school. And that's just my first 25 years.
Wow.
I eventually changed occupations in the sense that I became a layperson again. I got married, I got 2 kids. Both kids are very successful, and I have 3 grandkids now. So yeah, what a life. I'm very happy with all the blessings I've had. But it wasn't always easy. When I changed from the religious life and priesthood to being a layperson again, I left with, I was given $200. And living in Toronto on $200, even then, was pretty tough. So I had a friend though, and with that $200, I bought a mattress at a clearance store, and I put that into a bathtub, and that was my bed.
Wow. Thank you, Emil, for sharing. That's quite the lifetime. What really stood out for me in your story is when you said you knew you were born for greater things. I actually didn't know that you're from Manitoba originally, born there, and we're about to inherit a farm. So quite the twist and turn of events, just knowing that you were born for greater things instead of taking on the inheritance, moving forward in the direction of your career. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing, Emil. All right, so now we are going to go on to share our insights and takeaways. Sharing time. All right, so love to hear your insights and takeaways from writing your own personal brand story, from hearing others. What is one insight that you're taking away? Did you discover anything new about yourself? Like, wow, I didn't realize that was an accomplishment. Over to you, Sean.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of it, realizing how much I've done. Sometimes when you accomplish something, you kind of become the judge, jury, and executioner of like, is this really accomplishment or is it not? So you're not really sure, but until like you really open up and you tell yourself like, yeah, you know what, that little thing I did, that is actually accomplishment. And I think another thing as well was I was able to kind of open up and really admit that trying to be a perfectionist, which is one of the main things I talked about like for this entire thing, is nothing that I should like really focus about, just about the learning experience. So I think really putting out my personal brand story allowed me to reflect on my learning experience and be like, even when I thought I was doing perfect things, it was never perfect. There was always hiccups along the road and everything. So that really kind of opened me up. And when I would just kept writing and writing and writing, just kept more, it became more easier to just acknowledge that fact.
So happy to hear. Thank you so much for sharing, Sean, that doing this exercise really helped you realize, yeah, actually I am more accomplished than I realized. Like you said, we're often, the judge of that, but when we take that judgment off and we approach ourselves with more of that grace and perfectionism, it allows us to boost ourselves up. Wonderful. Stacy, over to you.
Sorry. I think like, ow. I'm so sorry. I just realized I've been sitting on my crystal this whole time. No wonder my hamstring was hurting. Well, honestly, I wrote down facts tell, but stories sell. And I really liked when you said that, because to be honest, like I think for me, I've always had a hard time, and we've talked about this multiple times, is I have a hard time with seeing even the smallest things being an achievement. I grew up in a household where everything I did was never good enough, and I never felt like I was a good enough daughter, never felt like I was a good enough in what I picked for my future, my career, never good enough in any of the choices I made. And being in that constantly makes you think that anything that you do is just nothing. And I still struggle, and that's why like I had such a hard time writing my little spiel too, is because I still have a very hard time like being able to see like the things that I've done. And oftentimes when asked like, oh, what have you achieved or what have you done in life, I kind of have a blank space in my head because I don't like, I can't see or recognize what I've done. And that's like difficult for me, like when I'm put in the spot to be asked that. Whereas like if I'm just, I think like oftentimes a lot of the things I've heard from people over the years is whenever I'm just talking about myself or the things I've done in life and just like things I think are just really normal. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, like you've really lived a life. Gosh, you're, you know, like the way that you go about things, or I love your mind. Like, wow, you really achieved this. Like, I wish I could be you. And hearing that, I'm like, really, you know, it's a shock. And so going back into this again is just a constant reminder that like everything that you do is an achievement. Just like even living your life, just being who you are is an achievement. And like I said, Val, one of the best things about you is that you're literally a cheerleader for the smallest things. So that's what I love about it. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Stacey. I really appreciate you sharing all of that and sharing with vulnerability and courage as well. You know, having that type of upbringing, first of all, come from the same cultural background is very relatable, and it's definitely not easy because, you know, this whole time we've been conditioned not to look at our accomplishments. It's always look at the mistakes. So no wonder we don't have that, you know, high self-esteem about ourselves and feel good enough. But through my hope is that through doing workshops like this and doing the coaching that I do as your career hype woman, that it helps people, helps you and others have a stronger sense of confidence. Great. Okay, so we're going way over time, but love to hear one last share, even if you want to share in the chat. What is an insight that you had from doing this exercise? Was it similar to Sean's and Stacey? You can also share that. Emil?
Okay, I guess I'm not on mute. All right.
Okay.
Well, one of the trainings I received and was training others was in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. And one of his thing is live, love, and leave a legacy. So I'm at that point, you know, what is the legacy I'm going to leave? But I think the other part of one of the insights from today was, as a child, I loved to play. I have to learn to go back to that childhood and just enjoy playing.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think all of us could really benefit from getting back in touch with our inner child, right? Where it wasn't tainted. Amazing. Okay, so now that everyone's enjoyed the survey, I really enjoyed hearing everyone's insights and stories. And one last word about storytelling and writing our own script is how powerful it can be when we, you know, we are in charge of that writing. We can rewrite our stories. Something that may have been seen as a source of pain, a source of shame, can really be transformed into what makes us so unique and what makes us powerful and stand out as the go-to person in our field of work. Awesome. So in exchange for our lovely time together, I would love to hear your opinions. So if you wouldn't mind, please take a moment to fill out the survey. Here is a QR code. I also have the link if you would like to do it on your computer. One moment, I am going to pause sharing so I can share the link with you all. For those who left early, I will make sure that they get this. We are a small organization and we really need your input. Yay, thank you so much, Sean. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Emil. Really appreciate your support. You're welcome, Pavel. I'll leave my contact information as well if you'd like to connect with me. I would love to hear after you've digested that information, what your insight and takeaway was. So that is my email at L.E.A.D.org. And then I'm also on LinkedIn at Valerie Career Confidence Coach. Thank you all so much for taking the time to share your stories. It was such a pleasure to hear everyone's.